the dead of the night, a building gets blasted off, followed by more buildings getting bombarded. Alpha is standing still inside the area of crumbling buildings. All of a sudden, a person wearing a gas mask jumps toward Alpha. Alpha gives off a cold stare to the masked man. The man punches the location of Alpha, which results in a big explosion. But when the smoke subsides, he finds out that Alpha is standing alive and well right behind him. The masked man rushes toward Alpha for the second time, crushing the windows of a whole building in the process. Even after this powerful attack, he can feel that he missed Alpha. All of a sudden, Alpha appears out of the smoke. Alpha punches the masked man with his full strength. The punch was so hard that the gas mask guy crashed into the walls of the building. Alpha follows him to confirm where he landed. After finding out that the gas mask guy has been neutralized, Alpha signs to himself. An ally of Alpha approaches him from behind and he informs Alpha that he accomplished his task as well. This guy is called Counselor and he tells Alpha that he was being too noisy and he could hear the sounds of his fight from far away. Counselor spots the dead modified human and now he understands why their fight was so loud. Their third ally, Chris, comes up who tells Counselor to stop his blabbering because he is being too loud. After watching the dead modified human, Chris informs them that she also took care of one modified human, but there was no report of a modified human being present here in the mission briefing. Alpha inquires about a specific item from Chris, and Chris hands over a chip which contains all the required data. Counselor is a bit skeptical about their missions because this is the fourth time Chief tasked them with getting data like this. Plus, the Chief is keeping this a secret from others and only ordering them around. Counselor is a bit curious, so he asks them if he can take a look at this data. Chris says that he should stop with his needless curiosity and they should simply follow their orders. And Counselor replies by saying that he was just joking around with them. It turns out not only the Counselor is feeling that something is off, because Alpha is also a bit skeptical about this data, but he keeps his thoughts to himself. Alpha tells both of them that their job is complete and they start heading back to the base. After some time, they arrive at the base, which is a well-hidden research lab. Alpha hands over the data chip to the Chief. The Chief praises Alpha for doing such a good job, and he compliments him by saying that he is the best agent of their research lab. Alpha stays silent, so Chief asks him if anything special happened during his mission. Alpha tells him that they met two modified humans who looked like they were made in that facility. The Chief also becomes a bit confused after hearing it. In his mind, Chief is thinking that the modified humans are a precious resource and two of them were protecting that building, which means that the data Alpha brought back this time must be quite useful. If the Chief continues the experiments and acquires a good result, his efforts will be noticed by the higher-ups and he will be promoted to some major union facility. The Chief compliments Alpha again for his hard work and he tells him that he will get paid by the supply department for this mission. After hearing that, Alpha leaves the room of the Chief. Both Counselor and Chris were waiting for Alpha outside the room. Alpha tells Counselor to go to the supply department and get some restorative medicine, but Counselor is not happy with the amount of medicine they are getting, so Chris tells him to shut up. Counselor asks Alpha if he's going to meet Dr. Heinel again, but before Alpha can answer this question, they spot another group of agents who are spectating something through a window. Counselor asks them what they are doing, and Agent Grain tells him that they are making bets on how many people will be still alive after a week. Inside the room, there are some new specimen. There are 20 of them, and Counselor asks if they are going to conduct another experiment, and Grain replies with a yes. Counselor says that there have been too many experiments lately and over 100 people already died in the last 2 months. Grain says that the Chief is desperate to get promoted, and there are experiments being conducted which are even hidden from the agents. One of the specimen looks at the windows and he spots some human shadows. The specimen starts screaming for help, and the other specimen also start doing the same. The specimens start banging on the glass window and they keep begging for help. The agents are not fazed after hearing their cries for help. One of the male specimen tells them that he is quite rich and he can give them as much money as they want. The agent starts laughing because there is no place for them to spend the money. Alpha, Counselor, and Chris are completely silent and they keep on observing them. The rich man keeps begging them to save him and a guard appears behind him. The guard strikes him very hard with the baton. The agents start laughing and they think the security guards are a bit lazy and they should handle the specimen more ferociously. More guards appear in the room and they start beating the specimens without mercy. Grain spots Alpha and Chris moving behind him and he asks them if they want to watch the beating of specimens and do a wager, but Chris says they are busy and they move away. One of the agents says that Alpha and Chris are being cocky because they are the best agents in the facility. Counselor comforts him by saying that they fought against 2 modified humans, and they are both on edge. During nighttime, Alpha arrives at Dr. Heinel's lab for checkup. After doing some checkup, Dr. Heinel informs him that his condition is same as the last time. Dr. Heinel tells him that he heard that Alpha came to him right away after finishing the mission, and if he's not feeling well. Alpha tells him that it is not the case, so Dr. Heinel asks him if he felt any sort of shift in his powers or sensation during his mission. Alpha replies with another no, and Dr. Heinel sighs to himself. Doctors asks him the same questions every time he returns from the mission, and he asks Alpha if these repetitive questions get boring for him. This time Alpha replies with a yes, and the doctor keeps silent. The doctor says Alpha can leave, and he starts preparing to leave. As Alpha is about to leave, Doctor stops him again for a second. This time Doctor asks him a secret question, that if he felt any sort of feeling while killing people during his last mission, and Alpha replies with a no. The doctor informs Alpha that he is like a doll who is devoid of emotions, and it's quite unfortunate. The doctor says there is nothing more to ask, so Alpha leaves the room. After Alpha leaves the room, Dr. Heinel starts covering in fear for some reason. During nighttime, the alarm starts ringing and there is a big hole in the wall. Some guards are lying unconscious on the ground and a test subject is trying to escape the facility. The test subject is not looking well as his whole body is covered with blue veins like symbols. At the same time, Alpha finished his gym training. Counselor bursts into the gym and informs Alpha that a specimen is trying to escape the research facility. Alpha is already too much tired from the last mission and his recent gym training, but he still gets ready to go catch the specimen. The specimen is quite confident that he can escape the lab with his powers. His path is blocked by a wall, so he prepares to burst through it. The specimen breaks through the wall and he starts falling down with the rubble. The specimen makes his landing and the rubble falls near him. The specimen says he only needs to get out of this encirclement and then he will be free. But he gets alerted after seeing someone. He spots Alpha, Counselor, and Chris who are waiting for him. The test subject says that he will not hurt them if they step aside. Alpha and his team members keep glaring at him without replying to his request. The specimen says that he already warned them, but killing them is the only choice left to him now. Chris starts laughing and she asks him if he is really confident in taking all of them down. The specimen becomes enraged and he leaps toward them. The counselor gets in front of his team. The specimen punches the counselor with his full strength, but his punch attack gets easily blocked by counselor. A lot of cuts appear on the arm of the specimen and he starts bleeding. Counselor jumps back and he says sorry to Chris for fighting in her stead. The specimen is quite pissed because he attacked the counselor with all of his strength, but his own arm ended up in a worse state. The counselor advises him to go back, and if he complies with them, he will not be killed. The specimen says that he cannot bear the experiments anymore, and he will do as they say if they assure his safety. The whole Alpha team has no answer for this question, and Counselor tells him that they cannot help him in that regard, because they also went through the experiments like him, and they are not in control here. The specimen is not satisfied with his answer, but all of a sudden, someone breaks a wall behind him. It turns out to be another agent who was looking for the specimen. The specimen jumps to the side to keep his distance. Counselor is a bit pissed and he calls the agent Jax. 2 more agents appear next to Jax, and he taunts Alpha team for not being able to catch a mere specimen. Jax tells them that he's going to take care of this lab rat, and they are not allowed to interfere in his job. The specimen becomes enraged at Jax for calling him a specimen, and he leaps toward Jax to attack him. The punch lands on Jax and it was quite powerful, but when the smoke disappears, Jax is standing still in his position. Jax tells the specimen that he should not have tried to run away with his low level of power, and his friends start laughing after hearing it. The specimen tries to attack Jax again, but when the smoke subsides, Jax is standing on top, and the specimen was beaten by him. Jax is still not done yet, so he asks the specimen to get up. Jax killed the specimen himself, but he starts pretending that the specimen died by accident, and he was only trying to subdue him. Jax is quite happy because he will now get the restorative medicine. He tells Counselor that he should have catched the specimen faster if he wanted the restorative medicine. Counselor says that there was no need to kill the specimen, and he would have gotten a light punishment if they had sent him back to the lab. Jax replies by saying that Counselor is talking gibberish and he did what he wanted to do. Jax further tells him that according to the rules, they are allowed to kill anyone who tries to escape, and he's not a softie like them. Counselor stays silent, as what Jax is saying is partially true. Jax tells them again that he will keep killing those who try to escape this place, just like how they cannot leave this place. Jax asks Alpha if he was thinking about sending the specimen back, but Alpha has no answer for his question, and he keeps being silent. After some time, Alpha team starts leaving the scene. The chief is quite pissed at Grain and he smashes a device on the head of Grain. The chief shouts at Grain because he was responsible for the security of the lab, and Grain says he is sorry. Chief orders them to turn every guard who was responsible into a specimen. Grain says that it was not the fault of the guards because that specimen had powers, and it was supposed to be locked up in the 4th zone with enough guards. It turns out Chief had no idea about it. Jax confirms that the specimen was stronger, so maybe the experiment was successful. Chief says that no one reported to him about this successful specimen, and the agents stay silent. The chief returns back to his previous behavior, and he starts pushing all the blame on Grain for not guarding the specimen well, and now all guards under him will be turned into specimen. Jax begs Chief to change his decision because it was not their fault in the first place. The chief starts saying that Grain must not challenge his decision or the chief will turn his entire team of agents into specimens too. Grain starts apologizing to the chief and he wants Grain to never doubt his decision ever again. Grain says that he will follow every single command of Chief without any questions. Chief informs them that the elite team of Hades will arrive today, and the agents become alerted after hearing it. Jax asks why Hades, who are agents from the central office, coming here. Chief tells him that they have a mission near this place. Chief also heard that agents from Hades will reorganize in their laboratory after finishing their mission. The chief says that they must all behave well in front of Hades and they are not allowed to say anything about today's accident. Chief further tells them to lay low, and even if they attack Hades with 100 people, they cannot touch a single hair on their body. Chief orders Alpha to stay while both Grain and Jax leave his office. The chief tasks Alpha with finding out how the specimen gained the power and why no one reported about him. He further informs him to keep an eye on the Hades team because they will not be up to something good. After leaving the chief office, Dr. Heinel approaches Alpha. Dr. Heinel asks Alpha about what happened to the specimen who tried to escape. Alpha says that they took care of it. Dr. Heinel asks him what he means by took care of it. Alpha says that they killed him, and Dr. Heinel sighs. Dr. Heinel says that the whole laboratory got worked up because of a mere specimen. Dr. Heinel thanks Alpha for the explanation and he starts leaving. The very same night, a helicopter carrying Hades' team arrives at the lab. The agents are waiting outside to catch a glimpse of the infamous Hades team. Counselor says that Hades team agents are different from them because they were once specimen and they became agents after surviving the experiments, while the agents from Hades team were members of the Union even before their bodies were modified. The agents of Hades team step out of the helicopter. Their leader Hades and Alpha give a stare to each other. Another agent asks Hades why he is acting like this, and Hades says that it seems like there is a useful guy in this place. The agents become a bit shocked for some reason. Hades tells his agents that there is nothing to worry about, and they should head inside. Inside the building, Chief welcomes the Hades team to his research facility, and he tells them that he has been instructed by higher-ups to assist them. One of the Hades team members tells the Chief to bring all the data they have right now, and Chief becomes a bit shocked. Hades informs Chief that they have been tasked with acquiring all the data related to specimen and agents from this lab. Chief asks them why they need this top-secret data, and the Hades team members gives off a grin smile, like they are looking down on him. After not getting a reply, Chief falls back into his place and he agrees on handing over the data to them. Hades team member further orders him to prepare an agent to tag along with them because they have a mission near their place. Hades team member further mocks Chief by saying that all of his agents are useless and he should only send someone capable enough. Chief says that he will assign the best agent available to assist them, and the Hades member keeps insulting him. Chief is totally pissed, but he somehow holds back his anger. With that said, the Hades team starts leaving the Chief office. After they leave, Chief is thinking of ways to get rid of Hades' team in the future, or they can pose a threat to his plans. But Chief is still confused as to why they are insisting on handing over the data, which is a top secret and only few people in the central office know about it. Chief calls someone to summon Alpha to his office. At the same time, Alpha is investigating about the specimen who just died, and he asks Dr. Heinel why that specimen was not reported to the Chief. Dr. Heinel was in charge of that experiment. That's why he's asking him about it. Dr. Heinel says that he made a report and he was about to go and report it to the Chief, but the specimen ran away before he could do so. Alpha is not satisfied with Dr. Heinel's answer, but he lets it slide for him. After Alpha went outside, Dr. Heinel starts remembering what actually happened in the past. Back in time, Dr. Heinel was trying to convince the specimen to hold on for a bit longer, but the specimen was in extreme pain and he wanted to run away as soon as possible. Dr. Heinel begs him to wait for a little longer and he will personally help him escape, and the specimen agrees with him, because Dr. Heinel has been kind to him all this time. Dr. Heinel leaves after thanking the specimen. After some time, when Dr. Heinel went to his office, the alarms start ringing, and he saw a bunch of guards heading somewhere. Dr. Heinel asks them what happened, and one of them tells Dr. Heinel to stay inside because the specimen is on the run. Dr. Heinel becomes shocked because he has an idea of who this specimen can be. In the present, Counselor asks Alpha about what Dr. Heinel said about the investigation, but Alpha keeps on walking silently without replying to him. Counselor keeps on blabbering stuff without getting any reply from Alpha or Chris. All of a sudden, Counselor remembers that Chief was asking for Alpha. Chris shuns him for being a dimwit and he should have reported it sooner. Alpha arrives at the office of the Chief and tells him that starting from now, his team will be assisting the Hades team, and he instructs him to keep an eye on all of their activities. Chief further tells him that this Hades team is quite fishy and Alpha should report everything they do on their mission back to him. Chief further instructs him to not let anyone know about this conversation, not even his team members. And then he asks Alpha to leave. As Alpha is about to leave, Chief warns him again to never trust the Hades team because one of the reasons they were sent here can be the annihilation of their research lab. Alpha comes out of the room and he tells his teammates that they have been assigned to cooperate with the Hades team on their mission. He tells them both to head over to the team meeting room and he will join them after meeting the Hades team. Alpha arrives at the Hades team room. Hades team members already have a lot of information on Alpha and they know he is the strongest agent of this lab. Hades tells Alpha to come back in their room at midnight. He will then assign a mission to him and his teammates. Alpha asks him to give him the briefing of the mission right now, and the female agent says that Alpha is being brave and she likes it. All of a sudden, Hades member Simon punches Alpha in his stomach. He then punches Alpha for the second time, sending him flying into the ground. As Alpha tries to get up, Simon keeps on belittling him for being too much cocky, and he should do as he is told without questioning them back. Alpha tries to get up, but he is not answering Simon's questions. This makes Simon even more angry, and he is about to hit Alpha again. Hades tells him to stop, and he pauses for a second. Hades tells Alpha that his demand is reasonable, but because of the nature of the mission, he can't reveal anything to him yet. Alpha has no other choice, so agrees with them. Alpha leaves the Hades team room while Simon keeps giving him an evil look. Alpha arrives back at his meeting room and Counselor asks him why his face is looking like that. Counselor asks Alpha about the agent from Hades team who did it to his face so they can get back at him whenever they get a chance. Chris is also curious to know the agent's name, but Alpha tells them to not worry about it. Alpha tells them that they are going to give backup to the Hades team for as long as they are in this facility. Next, Alpha reports what happened in the Hades room to the Chief, and the Chief tells him to do whatever they ask of him for now. Chief tells him that he did the right thing by not retaliating back. The Hades team consists of unbeatable monsters and they can kill everyone in this facility if they get pissed. Alpha agrees with Chief, but deep down he knows that Chief is also up to something fishy. In the training room, other agents are doing their usual training. Team Jax is also present there. The door opens up and Simon, along with another Hades team agent, come inside. Jax becomes shocked as to why they came to the training room. The bulky agent goes next to the glasses agent from Grain team. The bulky agent tells him that he's going to use these punching bags for some time and he should stay back. The glasses guy backs off and bulky agent gets ready. All of a sudden, bulky agent punches the bag and it ruptures in just one hit. Both Grain and Jax become shocked because the inside of those punching bag was filled with metal. The bulky agent becomes ready for a second attack. This time he ruptures 3 bags filled with metal in one go. Bulky agent mocks them by saying that their punching bags were flimsy and they are built for weaklings. Out of nowhere, Simon gets inside the ring. He tells other agents to come up together and he's going to test their skills. The Grain team has nothing to say and they don't want to fight Simon. Simon gets angry and yells at them to get inside the ring or he will come down and kill every single one of them. Grain gets inside the ring and he tells Simon that he will fight him, but he must keep his team members out of it. Simon thinks that Grain is belittling him by coming up alone, and he tells others to join him as well. Grain cannot argue with him, so he stays silent. One of Jack's agents asks him about what they should do now, and Jax tells him to do as Simon is saying. After some time, Alpha Team door opens up and the glasses agent comes up to ask for help. Counselor asks him what happened, and he starts explaining the situation to them. Inside the training room, the condition of most of the agents is not looking well, as they have been beaten by Simon. Jax is worried because soon it will be his turn next. Simon starts belittling them again for being useless specimen. Grain tries to get up and Simon keeps belittling them by saying that they are just tools used by the research lab and they cannot even survive a single day outside because they need a constant supply of medicine to keep them alive and they are being a burden to their budget. Simon proudly says that they are different from them and they were chosen from the elites of the organization for this role. Grain tells him that they are not specimen anymore. This makes Simon more pissed and he starts punching Grain left and right. Grain has been beaten to a pulp, but he is still hanging on with his pride alone. Simon mocks him again by calling him specimen and he starts preparing for a strong leg attack. Grain gets hit by the leg attack of Simon and he crashes into a wall outside the training room. Alpha Team, who just entered the room, becomes shocked after watching it. Counselor shouts at Grain's name, but as always, Alpha has nothing to say about this situation. Simon tells them that they came at the perfect time and he asks Alpha to come up. Alpha has nothing to say to him and he stays still. Simon asks him not to be scared and he will not beat him badly like last time. Everyone becomes shocked after hearing that their strongest agent was beaten by Simon. Alpha stays still and Simon tells him to follow his order and come up. Alpha tells him that he is assigned to follow Hades' orders and not his. Simon says that maybe Alpha is courting death. Alpha gives him a cold stare without replying to anything Simon is spouting. All of a sudden, Hades arrives in the training room and he orders Simon to stop. Simon warns Alpha to not be cocky next time or he will kill him for real. While getting down from the ring, Simon spots Chris and he asks for her name. Chris gives him a cold stare and she is also not replying to Simon, just like Alpha. Simon gets down and he tells Alpha to work on the manners of his team. Everyone is cursing Hades' team for being dickheads, but on the other hand, Jax is dreaming that if he can leave this place and join the central office, he can be like them too. He is determined to become an agent of the central office even if it means betraying his comrades. The morning sun rays hit the research facility. Counselor informs his teammates that Grain got some broken bones, plus his several organs have been badly injured. Both Chris and Alpha stay silent and Counselor keeps on talking like usual. Counselor asks Alpha to report it to the chief and requests him to talk with the Hades team. Alpha stays silent, but he remembers talking to the chief about it last night. After he reported the events to the chief, he got shocked and he asked why Jax was not harmed. And Alpha tells him that Jax stayed behind, so he got away unharmed. Alpha asks Chief if he can request the Hades team to not cause any trouble for them, but Chief shuns him by saying that it is not his job, and they got hurt due to their stubbornness, and he advises Alpha to stay away from trouble too. As Alpha is leaving, Chief says that all agents in his lab are trash, who cannot take care of even one agent from the main office. Back in the present, Counselor is still ranting about the previous incident. All of a sudden, Simon along with Bulky Agent arrive at the Alpha team waiting room. Counselor asks them why they are here and Simon tells them that tonight at 1 AM, they will be moving out for the mission, and they should come prepared at that time. Simon looks at Chris and he says that she should come at time or he will personally punish her. This time Chris remains still without replying to them, and Counselor thinks that Simon is going to get angry again, but for some reason, Simon starts leaving without causing a ruckus. As they are about to leave, Alpha calls them back and inquires about the mission. Simon is barely keeping his cool and he tells Alpha to remember the last time when he asked the same question. Alpha tells him to shut up and give him the briefing about the mission. As Simon is about to beat Alpha for the second time, the Bulky Agent intervenes and he stops Simon for causing trouble. Simon and the Bulky Agent leave the room without telling them anything about the mission. After some time, Dr. Heinel is working in his lab. Hades comes in and he inquires about how he's doing, which indicates that he already knew about Dr. Heinel. Hades says that Dr. Heinel is a capable person and he should be working in a better place. Hades further tells him that his higher-ups want to offer Dr. Heinel a big position in the main research center. Dr. Heinel says that he is happy working in here and he rejects their offer. Dr. Heinel tells Hades to give his thanks to the higher-ups for the suggestion, but he will be staying here. Hades leaves after saying that he can take his time to think about his decision and they will wait for his answer. While they are leaving, Hades informs his fellow agent that once they are done with the mission, they have to take Dr. Heinel back at any cost, even if they have to use force. The female agent informs Hades that she looked at the data Chief provided, and it turns out Alpha is the only agent Dr. Heinel personally made. During nighttime, both Alpha and Hades' team are moving toward the location of their mission on helicopters. Counselor is still pissed at Hades' team because they didn't provide any sort of intel about the mission. All of a sudden, Hades' team helicopter stops in the air. The Hades team jumps down from the helicopter without any parachute. Alpha tells his teammates that they are going to follow them, and he jumps down. Chris and Counselor have no other option left, so they jump down as well. Alpha and Chris land safely into the forest. After a while, Counselor lands behind them. Both Alpha and Chris start running after the Hades team, and Counselor follows them. Hades team is running too fast, so Alpha orders Chris, who is the fastest agent, to move ahead. Hades team stops at a clearing to wait for Alpha team. Chris is the first one to arrive right after them. Hades team members are fine, but Chris is panting from exhaustion. After a while, both Counselor and Alpha arrive there, and they are both panting as well. The female agent congrats Alpha for keeping up, while Simon, on the contrary, shuns them for being too slow. Hades starts the briefing. Their destination is 1 kilometer away from their current location, and their goal is to ambush and remove the organization which is occupying that place. Simon tells them that they are tasked with only taking care of the ones who will try to escape the place, and Hades' team will take care of their main forces. Alpha silently glares at Simon, and he's still pissed at him. After a while, Hades' team starts attacking the facility. Some soldiers fire shots at Simon, but the bullets go through him without injuring him. Simon ignores the soldiers, and he plunges toward a building. The soldiers start firing at Simon with machine guns mounted on vehicles, but Simon easily dodges the array of bullets. Simon leaps toward the armored vehicles, and he destroys them with his kick. Simon says this mission is quite easy, while Hades is standing back with the female agent. Team Alpha is watching this massacre from a high cliff. Counselor says that he is glad he didn't mess with them because Team Hades is no less than a monster in itself. Hades asks his agents about the target, and the bulky agent says that they cannot spot him in the facility, and he must have ran away. Hades orders them to chase the target. Both bulky agent and Simon start chasing the target at max speed. Their target is a scientist, and he's running away with 2 modified humans. The modified humans come to a stop after spotting someone. It turns out Team Alpha had their eyes on them, and they block their passage. The professor is about to say something important, but someone crashes behind them. It turns out to be Simon. It tells them that there is no use in running away from their death. First modified human starts running away along with the professor, and Simon chases them. The second modified human tries to attack Simon, but he misses Simon, and his punch lands on a small mountain. The punch was so powerful that it pierced through the small mountain. Simon kicks the bald modified human, and he tries to block the attack, but he gets pushed back due to the impact of the kick. The bald modified human crashes through a lot of trees. He falls next to Alpha team, and his mask drops down. Alpha and bald modified human look at each other, and it turns out that bald modified human is the same specimen who tried to escape, and he was killed by Jax. Bald modified human thinks his cover has been blown, so he quickly gets his mask up. He rushes toward Alpha to finish him so they cannot investigate how he made it out of the lab after faking his death. As he is about to attack Alpha, Simon torns him into 2 parts with a powerful kick. Simon is thinking that bald modified human tried to go for Alpha team because he thought they were weak, but Alpha stays silent as he had an idea why bald modified human tried to attack him. At the same time, the second modified human falls near them, and Counselor says that he saw this modified human before. Chris asks him how he knows about him, and Counselor says that he saw a dead specimen in the lab with the same face. Alpha stays silent as he now knows that someone is smuggling specimen outside after faking their deaths, and he has an idea who this person can be. The bulky agent comes up with the professor in his hand. The bulky agent throws the professor, and he lands next to the red-haired specimen. Hades comes up to the professor, and he calls him by his name, Dr. Garin. Hades informs him that he was looking for him for a long time. Dr. Garin seems to recognize Hades. Hades tells him that he cannot run away, so he should listen to them. Dr. Garin gets up, and he seems to have a detonator in his hand. Dr. Garin tells them that he has a lot of bombs attached to his body, and once he pulls the trigger, they will die along with him. Before Dr. Garin can say anything else, his hand gets chopped off. It turns out Simon chopped his hand with a kick. Dr. Garin starts crying in pain. Simon kicks him, and he lands near the Alpha team. Simon steps on his hand, and he asks Doctor why he betrayed the Union, and he won't let him die so easily. Hades tells them that their mission has been completed, and now they will return to the base. Simon throws the doctor toward the Alpha team and he tells them to carry him back to the base. After, the Hades team leaves the scene. Dr. Garin calls Alpha by his name, which shocks him. Dr. Garin begs Alpha to kill him. Counselor is shocked as to how Dr. Garin knows about the code name of Alpha. Doctor keeps begging them to kill him or Hades team will torture him to get all the secrets. Alpha is shocked for a second, but then he gathers his thoughts. Counselor says that he don't know how the doctor knows about his name, but they should not kill him, and do as Simon instructed them. Before they can do anything, Simon appears there and he asks them why they have not started moving yet. Alpha and Chris give him a silent treatment as usual. Simon starts becoming pissed again because they are ignoring his orders. Counselor tells him that Doctor was making a lot of commotion, so they were afraid he might die if they beat him more. Simon taunts them again for being useless, and he runs away after grabbing Dr. Garin by himself. Alpha tells his team members to not tell anyone about the Doctor recognizing him, and he tells them to head back as well. After they return, Counselor asks Chris about Hades. When Hades members were messing around in the training room, they were holding back, but in the battlefield, they showed their true power by releasing waves from their bodies. Counselor asks Chris about Alpha and she says she hasn't seen him since they returned. Counselor gets up to visit the injured guys in the infirmary. He asks Chris if she wants to tag along, but she refuses him. In the silence of night, Alpha is looking through the data of deceased specimen. After gathering enough data, he goes to Dr. Heinel's room. Dr. Heinel asks him why he is here so late at night, and Alpha tells him that he wants to ask him something. Alpha asks him about specimen 034, who was with him during experimentation, and he was reported to be dead during the experiments. He further tells him that he saw that specimen alive during his last mission. Dr. Heinel pretends to be shocked after hearing it, and he tells Alpha that he must be hallucinating because of too much workload. He further tells Alpha to lay down so he can check his body for any irregularities, which can be making him to hallucinate. Alpha tells him that he saw another specimen there as well, and he is sure that he is not hallucinating. He tells Professor that there is a traitor among them, and he is now going to report everything to the chief. Professor tells him to not tell anything to the chief because he is an idiot, and he will report it to the Hades team. Alpha says then it will be even better because Hades team will sniff out that traitor for them. Professor tells him that he personally knows about Hades team and they will annihilate everyone here instead of wasting their time to look for a single traitor, and they are already looking for an excuse to destroy this facility. Alpha becomes shocked after hearing it because the behavior of Hades' team is really suspicious from the start. Alpha starts going back to his room without reporting anything to the chief. All of a sudden, Jax stops him and he seems to be jealous of Alpha because he just went to a mission with Hades' team. Alpha tells him to go back, but Jax still seems to be stubborn. Simon comes from behind and he asks them why they are throwing words at each other, and they should juke it out with their fists. Simon asks them which one is the stronger among them. Jax says that they never fought against each other, so they have no idea. Simon tells them to fight each other so they can find out. Jax becomes flustered and he tells Simon that the chief forbid them from fighting each other. Before Simon can say anything else, Alpha starts leaving the corridor. Simon says that Alpha is an arrogant bastard and he is full of himself. Jax takes this chance to suck up to Simon, but they go away without paying any heed to his words. Jax, in a hurry, starts begging them to take him with them in their next mission. Both agents look at Simon for a second and they start walking away after saying that they will take him along if he proves his usefulness to them. Jax thanks them and he seems to be determined to get on their good side. Alpha reports the events of their last mission to the chief, and he also tells him about the dead specimen who he encountered during their last mission. Chief becomes shocked after hearing it and Alpha leaves the room. Alpha is walking through the corridors. Suddenly, he senses a suspicious movement outside. In the forest, a mysterious agent is running through the forest. The agent comes to a stop at some point. The clothing of this man looks same as Team Hades. Hades comes out of the shadows and calls him Jai. Jai informs Hades that he tried to get information out of the Dr. Garin using truth serums, but they don't seem to be working on him. Hades gives him a cold stare as he is not impressed by his work. Jai becomes a bit afraid and he tells him that Dr. Garin already lost too much blood and if he tortured him, Dr. Garin might die. Hades ignores his answer and he inquires about the location of their next mission. Jai tells him that they are still searching and their boss hasn't given them any information yet. Hades signs and he asks him if he was not careful while infiltrating this place because someone spotted him. Jai says that he cannot be discovered while infiltrating such a low-ranked facility. Alpha appears behind him and Jai becomes startled after knowing that someone other than Hades got to him. Hades wants Jai to be more careful next time. Jai says sorry to Hades for his carelessness. Hades informs Alpha that Jais is his team member and he joined them late because he had other missions. Alpha says that he will report it to the chief and Hades allows him to do so. Back in the lab, Dr. Heinel is worried about the findings of Alpha and Hades' team. All of a sudden, he gets a call from the chief who orders him to come to his office. He gets worried that maybe Alpha reported about his encounter with the dead specimen to the chief. Heinel arrives at the chief's office and chief tells him that he got a report about dead specimens being alive. Chief gets more pissed and he asks him about how they got out. Heinel refutes his claims by saying that he is only responsible for research projects, and even if the dead specimens were found alive, they don't fall under his jurisdiction. Chief tells him to investigate this matter thoroughly, or if the Hades team gets a gist of it, they might destroy this facility. Back in the laboratory, Dr. Heinel calls for Alpha. After a while, Alpha arrives in the laboratory, and Dr. Heinel asks him why he reported everything to the chief while he told him not to do so. Alpha replies by saying that he is obligated to report everything to the chief, and he further says that chief is the highest authority in this facility, not Dr. Heinel. Dr. Heinel screams at him that he is the one who made him into an agent from a specimen, not the chief. But Alpha repeats the same thing, that Chief is the head of this facility, and he will only listen to his commands. Dr. Heinel thinks that talking reason with Alpha is of no use, and he tells him to go back. Dr. Heinel is worried because he tried his best to make Alpha into more human-like, but he follows the orders of a madman like a robot. While Alpha is going back, he encounters Grain and Counselor. Grain asks Alpha how he's doing, and it must be tough for him working with the Hades team. Alpha ignores his question. He asks Grain how are his injuries, because he heard Grain had a lot of broken bones. This question shocks both Counselor and Grain, because Alpha never showed any concern for his fellow agents before this. Grain tells him that he recovered fast after taking some medicines, but these medicines have a lot of side effects and he can die at any given time. Counselor says that he should not have used those medicines and gotten a normal treatment. Grain tells him that his teammates are also injured, and Chief won't give them any restorative medicine if they don't work. That's why he used this method to get well quickly. Alpha asks him how much restorative medicine he has left, and Grain tells him that he has a very little amount left, which can keep him and his teammates alive for a few days. And Chief won't give them any more restorative medicine because of the recent incident of the specimen who tried to escape. Alpha throws a brand new pack of restorative medicine at him. Alpha tells him to take a rest and use these restorative medicines and they can keep them alive for at least a month. Alpha starts leaving while Grain and Counselor are both shocked after seeing this abnormal behavior of Alpha. Meanwhile, at another part of the facility, an agent is resting next to the data storage. All of a sudden, Simon and the bulky agent arrive there. Simon asks the agent to open the storage lock. Agent tells them that only Dr. Heinel and Chief are allowed to go inside, and Simon asks him if he knows who they are. The agent tells Simon that he knows who they are, but he cannot open the door without the permission of the chief. Before he can say anything else, bulky agent smacks him with a punch and the agent crashes into the wall. Simon calls the bulky agent by his codename Gusp and tells him to not hold back next time. Suddenly, the alarms of the facility start ringing. Jax arrives there first with his team and he is shocked to see Simon and Gusp standing there. Alpha team arrives there before Jax can ask Simon what happened. Counselor becomes worried after seeing the agent laying on the floor. Green arrives there and he inquires about the condition of his fellow agent. Counselor tells him that the agent is already dead. Green becomes angry and he asks Simon why he did this. Simon tells him that they needed to find something and the agent was blocking their way. Green silently mourns the death of his comrade because he cannot do anything against Simon. Alpha is glaring at Simon, which pisses him off. Simon warns Alpha to not get cocky or it will be his turn next. But before he can do anything, Hades comes up and he shuns Simon for making this huge mess. Simon says that they tried to ask the agent politely, but he was bad-mouthing them, that's why they did it. All agents are silently standing on the sides as they know they can't do anything against Hades' team. Meanwhile, Alpha is trying his best to contaminate the rage inside him. Grain reports what happened outside the data room to the Chief. Grain requests Chief to do something about Hades' team. Chief informs that Hades' team is above his league and they will wipe out this whole facility if they feel like it. He again warns Grain to not get in trouble with any member of Hades. After that, he tells Grain to leave his office. Chief is still confused because he handed over all the data Hades requested, but they still went for the data center, and he thinks that maybe Hades' team knows about the secret experiments he was doing behind their back. Meanwhile, in the Hades room, the Alice found out from the data they just recovered that Chief is doing experiments behind their back. Hades tells her to keep digging through the data for more information. 3 agents of Grain Team are quite pissed at Simon and Gusp for killing their friend. Simon and Gusp arrive there along with Jax. Simon heard all of their conversation and he mocks them again by calling them bugs who cannot even take revenge for their friend. Simon sits down in front of them and he asks them to come at him if they want revenge right now. The 3 of them are angry, but they know they cannot do anything against him. Simon says that he knows they are no match for him, so he asks Jax to fight them in his place. Jax reminds him again that the chief forbade them from fighting against each other. Simon tells him that 1 agent already died after following Chief's orders, and now Jax can be the second one. Jax knows well that Simon is not kidding, but he is still hesitating a bit. Simon tells him that he can take Jax on their next mission if he can prove his skills to him right now. This offer is too good for Jax, and he gets ready to fight the agents from Grain Team. The 3 agents become startled, and they try to convince Jax to not do as Simon says. After hearing a lot of commotion, Counselor and Chris head for cafeteria. One of cafeteria wall is broken and an agent is unconsciously lying there. The situation inside is not looking well, with blood spattered and broken furniture all over the place. 2 more agents are lying unconscious inside while Jax is panting from exhaustion. Counselor asks Jax why he beated them. Simon comes up to Jax and he tells him that his skills are not good, but he has a lot of determination, so he will take him to the next mission tonight instead of Alpha Team. After Gusp and Simon leave the cafeteria, Jax starts leaving too. Counselor tells him that he should not have done that for such a small reward. Jax tells him to shut up because the 3 of them were stupid and they were caught badmouthing the Hades team, and Simon would have killed them if he did not beat them. Jax leaves the room while Counselor stays silent because he knows what Jax did injured them, but their lives were saved. In the office, Chief instructs Alpha to find the person Team Hades caught, and he further instructs him to find out what Team Hades is really planning to do. In the dead of night, Alpha starts moving through a forest. He finally arrives at a location with some abandoned buildings. He starts searching for Dr. Garin inside the building. Finally, he arrives at a room where Dr. Garin is being held. The condition of Dr. Garin is not looking well because Jai tortured him. Alpha goes up to Dr. Garin and Dr. Garin asks him what he is doing in there. Alpha asks Dr. Garin how he knows about his codename. Dr. Garin is happy to see Alpha one last time, and he tells him to warn Dr. Heino to run away because he already spilled the beans. He had no other choice because they threatened to kill his family members. These prove to be his final words as he succumbs to his wounds. All of a sudden, Alpha hears someone call his name from behind. It turns out to be Jai, who was still in the building, and he was about to head to the research facility to report everything to Hades. He asks Alpha to tell him what he is doing here, but Alpha keeps staring at him without replying back. All of a sudden, Jai appears behind Alpha. He attacks Alpha with his arm, but Alpha dodges it by ducking down. Alpha then leaps back to keep his distance from him. Jai is quite pissed as he still cannot believe that Alpha was fast enough to dodge his attack. Jai powers up by giving off an energy wave. All of a sudden, he appears right in front of Alpha to punch him. Alpha barely manages to dodge his attack. Jai then starts beating Alpha from close range. The last punch of Jai was quite heavy and it left a lot of impact on Alpha, and he starts coughing up blood. Alpha tries to counterattack, but Jai dodges it with ease. Jai then punches Alpha with his full force. Alpha gets smashed into the wall due to the impact of the punch. Jai applauds Alpha for keeping up with his speed for this much longer because he's the fastest member of his team, besides Hades. Jai then leaps toward Alpha to finish him off. Alpha uses Limit Unlock to increase his power. Alpha punches Jai, but he somehow dodges it. Jai becomes surprised because the last attack of Alpha was too fast for him. Out of nowhere, Alpha punches his ribcage. Jai is in extreme pain and Alpha is looking down on him. Now he knows that Alpha was hiding his true power from the start and he was just pretending to be weak. As Alpha is about to punch Jai with his full strength, he gives out a huge energy wave, which puts many huge impacts on the abandoned buildings. Meanwhile, on the other side, Team Hades is wreaking havoc on their current mission. The whole facility is in shambles, and every scientist and modified human stationed there is dead. Gusp reports to Hades that they were late this time and the person they were searching for already escaped. One of Jack's agents informs him that he saw some of the specimens present here before in their research facility, and they all died in there. Simon hears it and he inquires about that specimen. Jax tells him that he has no idea what that specimen was doing here because he already died a long time ago during experiments. In the laboratory, Dr. Heinel is looking through the reports. Alpha rushes inside the room and Dr. Heinel asks him about his injuries. Alpha tells Dr. Heinel that he needs to come with him for interrogation, and Dr. Heinel asks him the reason for the investigation. He tells Dr. Heinel that the guy Team Hades caught in their last mission took Dr. Heinel's name and he sent a message for him to run away. Dr. Heinel becomes shocked as he knew Dr. Garen would never sell him out. Alpha informs him that they found his family, so he couldn't help it. Dr. Heinel asks what happened to Dr. Garen, and he tells him that Dr. Garen died due to extreme torture. Alpha says that Dr. Heinel should reveal now why he faked the death of specimens and took them away. Dr. Heinel tells him that the chief is controlling him and the other agents using the restorative medicine, and he wanted to save them all with his collaborators. Alpha tells him that it does not matter now, and he belongs in this research facility. But Dr. Heinel keeps on insisting that Alpha is a human, not a tool. Alpha tells him that it is quite late, and Dr. Heinel is the one who made him into a tool in the first place. Dr. Heinel says that he made many mistakes in the past, and he was now trying to make up for his mistakes by saving all specimen. Dr. Heinel says that he wants to tell Alpha a secret, because Hades' team is going to catch him soon. He informs Alpha that his family member is here too, and they are used as specimens. This shocks Alpha to the core as he previously thought he had no alive family members. Alpha asks Dr. Heinel about his family member location. Dr. Heinel only came across some information about his family while browsing through some old data. Heinel has no idea about their current location because after Chief came to this facility, he started hiding data about specimens and doing some bizarre secret experiments. Dr. Heinel informs him that this is the best time for him to search for his family member because the whole lab is busy in other projects. Alpha replies by saying that there is no need for him to look for his family because he will die in the outside world without restorative medicine, but Alpha has a little bit change of heart, so he gives some extra time to Dr. Heinel. When Alpha returns to his room, it is revealed that he also suffered some serious injuries during his fight. Plus, Limit Unlocked took a toll on his body and he is now feeling weak. Alpha sits down to relax his body. He remembers Dr. Heinel's words about his family being here in the research facility. Alpha is exhausted, so he decides to take a quick nap. Chris and Counselor come in while Alpha is resting. Both of them become worried after watching Alpha in a rough condition, but Alpha does not reply to any of their questions. Counselor informs him that Jax beated agents from Grain Team and he is now gone on a mission with the Hades team. All of a sudden, they start hearing loud voices coming from the building. It turns out Grain is pissed at Jax for beating his teammates, so he is trying to settle the score with him. Grain has not recovered yet from his wounds, so Jax easily beats him. Jax tells Grain to take a rest so his body can recover, but Grain is persistent on taking revenge for his friends. Jax becomes serious, and as he is about to beat Grain once again, Chris appears there and she manages to stop him. Grain says that Jax is the one who broke the rules first by attacking his teammates, and now he will report it to the chief. Jax replies by saying that he don't even care if he reports it to the chief. After hearing the commotion, Chief summons them to his office and Grain informs him about Jax's recent behavior toward other agents. Jax tells Chief that Simon had ordered him to do it, so he had no other choice. Jax tells Chief that he has big news for him. Jax explains that during their last mission, they saw a specimen who had previously died in the lab, and it seems like Hades' team already knew about it and they were giving off suspicious vibes. Chief inquires about the current location of Hades' team, and Jax says he has no idea because they separated from them on their way back. Chief is quite afraid as he knows there is only one person beside him who can do this type of stuff. Chief gets pissed and he orders them to bring Dr. Heinel to him. On their way back, Jax says that according to the Chief's response, Dr. Heinel seems to be the culprit behind all of this. Out of nowhere, Alpha says sorry to both of them. He punches them both in one go, and both of them fall unconscious due to the impact. Alpha runs off to Dr. Heinel and he informs him that the chief now knows that he was behind all of those missing specimens, and he sent Grain and Jax after him. Dr. Heinel says that he cannot run away right now because there is some important data he needs to send to his comrade. Alpha says that he will stall them until he can finish his work. Plus, he already attacked them both on his way, so there is no way back for him. Both Counselor and Chris are on their way back to the office. All of a sudden, they see a Team Green and Jax rushing toward them. Both teams surround them from all sides and Jax asks them about the location of Alpha. They both have no idea about the whereabouts of Alpha and they inquire why they are acting hostile. Jax informs both of them that Alpha has betrayed them. Jax further elaborates that Alpha attacked them and he's collaborating with Dr. Heinel, who is a traitor. All of them start searching for Alpha, and Grain informs Counselor and Chris that he will try to convince Alpha because he's the best agent and he can get away with a light punishment from Chief. Chris starts leaving and she informs Counselor that she's going to help Alpha because Chief never really cared about them and she can't leave Alpha in his time of need. Counselor says that she will die if the Chief stops giving them the restorative medicine. She tells Counselor that they are just tools for Chief and they will be replaced when Chief has no need for them. So instead of following Chief's orders, she will help her comrade. Jack's team finds Alpha standing on guard in front of Dr. Heinel's office. One of Jack's agents informs Chief that they found Alpha. Chief orders them to not kill Alpha or Dr. Heinel, and he wants both of them alive. Jack says that last time Alpha did a sneak attack, that's why he couldn't respond properly. Alpha asks Jax when he's going to stop yapping his mouth and fight him for real. This pisses off Jax and he leaps toward Alpha, but out of nowhere he gets kicked in the face by Chris. Jax crashes into the wall and even Alpha becomes shocked. Jax asks her if she is betraying them as well. Counselor appears there as well and they ask Alpha about their orders. Alpha tasks them both with protecting Dr. Heinel. With that said, both teams get ready for a head-on fight. Counselor starts punching the second agent of Jack's team. After a little session of getting beaten up, the second agent punches him back. Chris attacks the first agent of Jack's team, but he somehow blocks her attack. First agent tries to attack her back, but she manages to dodge his attack by leaping to the side. Chris then punches him, bashing him into the ground. On the other side, Jax is trying his best to hit Alpha, but Alpha easily dodges his punches. Jax finally manages to punch Alpha in the face. Alpha retaliates by striking him back with a powerful kick. Alpha then does a follow-up attack by punching Jax in the face. Alpha tries to punch him in the chest, but Jax blocks his attack with his arms. On the other front, Counselor is also getting beaten up by the second agent. The second agent informs Chief that Counselor and Chris have turned against them as well. Chief becomes furious because if Team Hades comes to know of this commotion, he will be in big trouble. Chief calls Grain, but he's not replying back to him. He goes to take a peek at his agents who are recuperating in the infirmary. Chief tells him to activate the emergency system because it's the only way his agents can survive through this. The alarms start ringing throughout the building. Grain starts moving toward Alpha Team along with security guards. Grain orders the guards to suppress Team Alpha and Dr. Heinel. He further elaborates that Dr. Heinel must be captured alive, and if Team Alpha shows resistance, they can kill them. On the other front, the first agent of Jack's team has been already beaten by Chris. Chris tells Alpha that he should go to Dr. Heinel's side, and they can take care of Jax and his lackey. Jax is quite pissed because he always wanted to fight Alpha, but now Alpha is just leaving so easily. Jax shouts at Alpha and he starts going after him, but Chris tries to kick him, which he manages to block somehow. He ignores her and he starts chasing Alpha again. Chris kicks him for the second time, which he manages to dodge as well. Chris gets furious and she tells him that she is her opponent and he should focus on this fight. Jax becomes furious and he starts fighting her for real. On the other side, some soldiers are trying to open Dr. Heinel's lab room with plasma cutters. Dr. Heinel knows that the door will soon be breached, but he needs to send as much data to his comrades as possible. After some time, the soldiers break through the lab door and they surround him. A soldier tells Dr. Heinel to quietly come with them, and Dr. Heinel is thinking that he could have sent all the data if he had more time. All of a sudden, Alpha appears there and he takes care of all soldiers in a few seconds. Alpha asks Dr. Heinel how much more time he needs, and Dr. Heinel informs him that he is almost done and he just needs to free the specimens from this facility. Alpha tells him that they don't have much time and they can later come back for the specimens. Dr. Heinel informs Alpha that he just found out why Team Hades really came here. It turns out they want to shut down this facility. Alpha asks Dr. Heinel what this closing a facility means. Dr. Heinel elaborates that Team Hades is going to wipe them out without a single trace, even including the chief. Alpha becomes shocked after hearing it. After some time, Alpha appears outside a big door with 2 guards stationed there. Both guards start shooting at Alpha and he rushes toward them while dodging their bullets. Alpha then gets rid of both of them with a single punch. Dr. Heinel then goes inside the room and he starts releasing the specimens. At the same time, both Simon and Gusp arrive at the facility, and they are quite curious to know why there are so many fighting sounds coming from the facility. Inside the facility, Grain just beated a specimen who is trying to escape, and he's wondering how the specimen got released. One of the soldiers comes up to him and he informs Grain that all specimen zones have started to open up one by one. He is sure that Alpha and Dr. Heinel are behind it, so he tasks the guards with capturing the specimens, while he will take care of Alpha. A lot of specimens make it out in the front yard of the facility. Some soldiers are blocking their way who warn them to go back to their cells. Some specimen are quite persistent and they start advancing toward the guards. But out of nowhere, the guards get hit by a strong attack. This attack was performed by Gusp, and Simon orders him to get rid of the specimens around them. Inside the facility, both Counselor and the second agent are going toe-to-toe. Counselor punches the second agent, throwing him up against the wall. On the other side, Chris and Jax are still duking it out. Chris punches Jax with her full force, which sends him flying back a bit. But out of nowhere, some bullets get shot at her. These bullets were shot by guards who came along with Grain, and Chris managed to dodge them. Jax takes this chance to kick Chris. Counselor breaks through the wall next to Grain and the soldiers. Grain and Counselor then start engaging in a hand-to-hand combat. Grain punches Counselor, which he manages to dodge. Grain tells him that he is sorry, but if he don't fight with them, Chief will cut their supply of restorative medicine, and his team members will die. Counselor tells him that he can understand, and they should both give their best. With that said, a punch of Grain starts moving toward Counselor. Counselor dodges his punch and he grabs Grain. Both of them crash into the outer wall of the facility. They fall outside, but they get shocked after watching the scenery around them. It turns out the specimens along with the guards stationed outside have been wiped out. Other agents come outside and they are confused as well. Gusp appears there and he says that he is thankful to all of them for coming outside at once, and now he will save time by getting rid of all of them. Jax thinks there is a confusion and he informs Gusp that Alpha Team are the traitor. But Gusp tells him that it doesn't matter because Team Hades was tasked with wiping out this whole place from the start. Grain becomes furious after watching all of the dead bodies of the guards. Grain rushes toward Gusp to attack him with his full force. The punch leaves a huge impact, but when the smoke subsides, they come to know that the punch of Grain was easily blocked by Gusp. He then punches Grain, smashing him into the ground. Meanwhile, inside the facility, Dr. Heinel informs Alpha that their job in that zone is done. Now there is only one zone left. Dr. Heinel further elaborates that the last zone was established even before he or the chief were appointed in this facility, and the information about the family members of Alpha must be stored in there. All of a sudden, someone calls them, and Alpha becomes alerted. It turns out to be Simon, who thanks Alpha for all the ruckus he caused, and it made his job easier. Meanwhile, on the outside, Grain falls down after getting beaten up. Jax and Chris are both worried because Gusp is too much overpowered. Counselor rushes toward Gusp to attack him, but Gusp disappears before Counselor's punch can land on him. All of a sudden, Gusp appears behind Counselor, but Counselor manages to block his attack on time. Even though Counselor blocked it, but the punch was so powerful that it sent him flying into distance. Counselor comes to realization that Gusp is too fast for him. Chris comes up to face Gusp, but Gusp gives her a chance to plead to Simon because he likes her, and maybe he will spare her life. Chris attacks her without paying any heeds to his words. Chris then throws a volley of punches which Gusp easily blocks. Gusp retaliates by attacking her, but Chris dodges it by leaping back. Jax is thinking that Chris is more faster than Gusp, but she lacks in strength. That's why she cannot land a critical hit on him. Finally, Gusp has enough of it, and he performs a powerful wave attack, sending Chris flying back. Soon, Gusp gets attacked from both sides by Counselor and Grain. Gusp easily throws Counselor away with just a brush of his arm, and he dodges the punch of Grain. Then he retaliates by smashing Grain into the ground. Chris starts rushing at him, and she attacks him again with a volley of punches. Jax, who is watching all of it, thinks that Gusp is an unbeatable monster, but he hears Counselor's voice who tells him to help them out. Counselor reminds Jax that Gusp said he's going to kill everyone, which includes both him and the chief. Jax thinks to himself that Counselor is correct, so he gathers his strength and he leaps toward Gusp. Meanwhile, inside the facility, Dr. Heinel asks Simon why they are trying to shut down this facility. Simon tells him that he has no idea and he's just following orders from the top. But he tells Dr. Heinel that he will be safe because they have orders from the top to bring him in alive. Alpha tells Dr. Heinel to head over to the last zone while he takes care of Simon right here. Dr. Heinel tells Alpha to be safe, and he starts heading to the last zone. Simon reminds him that this time, there is going to be no one stopping him, so Alpha should give his all to survive. With that said, Simon jumps toward Alpha to attack him with his leg. Alpha dodges the attack by leaping back, but Simon attacks him again, sending him flying into the wall. At the same time, Simon receives a call from Hades. He informs Simon that they went to the abandoned building to pick Jai, but they found his dead body in there. Simon is a bit confused because there is no one strong enough in this whole countryside who can match up to the speed of Jai. Hades is not sure, but he thinks that it can be Alpha. Hades warns Simon to be extra careful around Alpha. At the same time, Alpha uses Limit Unlock after getting up. When the smoke subsides, Simon cannot spot Alpha's dead body. Suddenly, Alpha appears behind him, but Simon barely manages to block it. Simon became afraid after seeing the speed of Alpha, and he is now sure that Jai was killed by him. Alpha kicks the face of Simon with his full force. Simon is now showing signs of fear, and there is no one around him to back him up. Somewhere inside the facility, Dr. Hanel is trying to open up the door of the last zone. After a bit of effort, he manages to crack the code which opens up the door. The inside of the last zone has no cells to hold the specimens, so Dr. Hanel thinks that maybe the family members of Alpha were moved somewhere else. Dr. Hanel starts gathering data and sending it to his comrades. He becomes alerted after hearing the voice of Chief calling him from behind. He turns around and the Chief is pointing a gun at him. Chief says that he could have easily climbed the ranks of the organization, but now everything is ruined because of him. Dr. Hanel informs him that one of the reasons Team Hades came here was to shut down the facility, and their orders have nothing to do with his betrayal. Chief informs Hanel that it cannot be the case because he was personally sent to this facility to maintain this specific zone. Dr. Hanel tells him maybe that's the reason why they want to shut this facility, so the secrets of this zone cannot be exposed to the outside world. Chief had enough of Hanel's crap, so he bursts up with anger. He then shoots Hanel to shut him up. Dr. Hanel starts bleeding and Chief starts leaving as he don't want to die in this place. Meanwhile, on the other side, Simon and Alpha are still duking it out. Simon performs a kick attack on Alpha, which he easily manages to dodge. Alpha then retaliates by landing a punch on his body. Simon performs a kick barrage attack on Alpha, which he easily dodges. The kick barrage attacks were so strong that the whole room starts crumbling. Alpha then punches Simon, sending him a bit back. Before Simon can stabilize himself, Alpha runs up to him. He punches Simon again in his chest, which sends him flying into the wall. Alpha gives a glare to Simon, and Simon emerges out of the rubble. Simon is quite pissed that he's getting beaten by a mere specimen. Simon leaps toward Alpha and his speed alerts Alpha. Simon performs a powerful kick wave attack which blasts the whole room. The whole room gets covered with the smoke from the falling rubble, which puts Simon in a disadvantage. Simon spots the afterimage of Alpha in the smoke and he uses his kick attack toward him. Out of nowhere, Alpha appears above him and he kicks Simon in the face, sending him flying away. Meanwhile, the situation outside is not looking well, as the agents from the facility are getting beaten up by Gusp. Grain appears there with a Gatling gun. Grain has enough of this crap and this seems to be their last chance at winning this fight. Grain starts firing the Gatling gun shots at Gusp. In order to dodge the bullets, Gasp jumps up in the air. He then lands on Grain with his full force, which leaves a huge impact on the surface. When the smoke fades, it turns out that Grain has been smashed into a pulp. Counselor tries to attack Gus, but Gus punched him in the chest after blocking his fist with one of his hands. Gus tells them that specimens like them are like mere bugs to them. But all of a sudden, Grain grabs his leg with his remaining strength. Grain says that they are not mere specimens, and he has a detonator in one of his hands. Grain pushes the button of the detonator, which results in a huge explosion, which can be seen from far away. Chris, Jax, and Counselor barely survived the last explosion. The whole front ground of the facility blew away. Chris, Counselor, and Jax are quite sad, as their friend gave his life for them. They become even more alerted after seeing a bulky figure emerging from the smoke. Once the smoke clears, it turns out to be Gusp, who has suffered some serious injuries. But he tells them that he was just playing with them, and he will get serious from now on. He tells them that their deaths are going to be painful as hell. He leaps toward Chris to attack her. Chris dodges his attack, but it was so powerful that it cracked the whole surface where it landed. He punches her again, but she jumps up to avoid it. Chris notices that the blast performed by Grain was effective against Gusp, as his arm is bleeding. She kicks the face of Gus, but it has no effect on him. Gus tries to catch her, but he gets kicked in his leg by Counselor. Chris seizes this chance to pummel the face of Gus. Gus bashes into Counselor, sending him flying into a wall. Gus gathers his energy on his fist to finish off Counselor in one blow, but before he can do anything, Jax attacks him right in the head. Jax then starts pummeling his face with fists. Gus gets a hold of one of his legs and he pummels Jax into the ground with all of his strength. Chris appears behind Gus and she gathers all of her energy in her fist. She then stabs through the heart of Gus with her fist. Even though Chris pierced his heart, but Gus is still spouting curses at them. Gus then drops dead on the ground. Counselor is barely hanging on, so he asks Chris about Gus. Chris informs him that she already finished the monster and Counselor starts smiling in relief. Chris picks him up and as they are about to leave, they hear the voice of Jax. Jax tells them to never forget that they beated that monster with his help. He requests them to save his team members who were beaten inside the building by them. He then starts crying and he informs them that it was true that the team members of Grain were going to get killed by Simon if he had not beaten them. Jax always wanted to rise up to the top and someday save all other specimens from these horrible experiments. These proved to be the last words of Jax as signs of life fade away from his eyes. Both Chris and Counselor become sad as they know Jax was a good guy from inside. But their hard-earned victory is short-lived as Hades appeared near them with Alice. Instead of feeling sad after spotting the dead body of Gus, Alice becomes happy as she can now fight with some stronger opponents. Hades heads inside after ordering her to take care of them. Alice is bursting from excitement and she gets ready for her fight. Both Chris and Counselor attack her in unison. Alice gathers up energy for a second and then she performs a powerful attack which even slashes the building behind them. Chris and Counselor barely manage to avoid the attack, but the wound of Counselor opens up due to the impact of the last attack. Alice congrats both of them for avoiding her attack. Chris thinks Alice is quite powerful because her energy can be seen with naked eye, plus she slashed the building with just a single wave attack. Alice leaps toward Counselor to finish him off first. Counselor thinks that it is the end for him as he cannot dodge this attack on time. But Chris manages to counter her attack on time. Chris starts attacking Alice with a punch barrage attack. Alice counters it with her wave attack which destroys a whole watchtower behind them. Finally, Alice gets ready to attack Chris with her wave attack. She manages to cut the stomach of Chris with her attack. Alice is getting bored so she is about to kill Chris, but Counselor smashes into her. Alice pierces her hand through the body of Counselor. Meanwhile, inside the facility, Simon is getting pummeled by Alpha. Both Simon and Alpha gather up their strength and they rush toward each other. In the end, Alpha manages to bury Simon under rubble. Chief comes into the room and he gets amazed after watching Alpha killing a member of Hades' team. He becomes happy for a second, but then he realizes that he lost everything because of Alpha and Dr. Heinel. Chief shoots some bullets toward Alpha, which he easily manages to dodge. Alpha walks past Chief instead of killing him, which shocks him. Chief asks him if he's going to Dr. Heinel, but it is no use going there now because he will only find a corpse in there. He tells Alpha that he killed that traitor with his own hands. This makes Alpha really pissed for the first time. Dr. Heinel was the only one who treated all specimens well, and he was also trying to save as many of them as possible. Chief keeps on bad-mouthing Heinel. All of a sudden, Chief can feel a strong energy moving toward him. This energy is coming out of Alpha, and he pummels the Chief into the wall. Meanwhile, on the outside, Alice just pierced Counselor with her fist. She then throws him away, making Chris angry. Chris starts attacking her with a kick barrage attack. All of a sudden, her leg gets a big cut. She falls back and Alice asks her why she stopped attacking her. Alice then leaps toward her and she manages to land a cut on the thighs of Chris. Alice then kicks Chris in the face, sending her flying back into the distance. Alice gives off a grin evil smile to Chris. She then kicks the place where Chris recently received a cut. Alice breaks another hand of Chris to torture her. Alice is a bit confused because she has never seen such powerful specimens before. All of a sudden, she notices a big pillar moving toward her. She's not fast enough to react to it, so the pillar smashes in her head. This pillar attack was performed by Counselor, who was playing dead after getting stabbed. Counselor tries to bonk her again with the pillar, but this time, Alice slashes the pillar with her fist wave attack. The wave energy cuts through the pillar and it eventually cuts off one of the arms of Counselor. Alice gives off her usual evil smile and she says that Counselor could have survived if he had played dead for a little bit longer. Her happiness is short-lived as Chris is about to attack her with a fist energy attack. Alice tries to dodge the attack, but Chris puts her full force in this one attack and she manages to perform a cut attack on the neck of Alice. Alice tries to stop the bleeding, but it is too late as the cut is too deep. The consciousness of Alice starts fading away and she drops dead on the ground. Chris asks Counselor if he is still alive. Counselor replies to her that he is alive, but he will die very soon, and he asks Chris about her condition. Chris tells him that her condition is same and she will die soon as well. Counselor confesses his love to Chris and he tells her that he always wanted to run away from this facility and soon they will be free from its shackles. Chris tells him that she lost most of her emotions during the experiment, so she has no such feelings for him. But she knows that Counselor always hated being alone, so she will accompany him till his death. Both of them keep on talking to stay alive for as long as possible. Meanwhile, inside the facility, Hades comes to the place where Chief has been smashed into the wall. He also finds Simon lying dead under the rubble. At the same time, Alpha arrives at the place where Dr. Heinel is still hanging on to his life. Dr. Heinel asks him if he unlocked his limit during the fight, and Alpha replies with a yes. Dr. Heinel informs Alpha that Limit Unlock is the ability which grants temporary power boost, but it also destroys the body of its user. Alpha tells him that he already knew about that. Dr. Heinel thanks Alpha as he was able to complete the transmission of data because of him. Dr. Heinel further tells him that he got solid proof that his family was here as specimens. He tells him that there are 2 specimens still alive inside this zone, and one of them is his family member. Dr. Heinel tells Alpha that he is sorry and he should have tried harder to save them. Dr. Heinel says that they committed a sin which cannot be redeemed, and these prove to be his last words. Alpha stays there silently watching the end of Dr. Heinel. He gets alerted after hearing the voice of Hades from behind. Hades says that it's such a waste because he came here to capture Dr. Heinel alive. All of a sudden, bombs start exploding around the whole facility. Hades informs him that he's the one who planted these bombs, and in order to thoroughly finish off the bugs, he also spreads poisonous gas around the facility. Alpha has enough of this crap, so he gets ready for the fight. Alpha leaps toward Hades to attack him, but Hades blocks it with one of his hands. Hades throws him back and he can feel that Alpha is too weak, and maybe he's exhausted from his last fight with Simon. Alpha uses his Limit Unlock ability and he again leaps toward Hades. This time his speed increased by a lot, but Hades still manages to block his punch. Alpha keeps on pressing Hades with punches. The condition of Alpha is becoming worse as he is using Limit Unlock more and more. Hades realizes that Alpha is using some temporary means to increase his strength. Alpha manages to land a hit on Hades, but it has no effect on Hades and he throws Alpha toward the wall. Alpha starts coughing up a lot of blood. Hades picks him up and he starts squeezing his neck. Hades tells him that he has a lot of respect for powerful people like him, and at first he was thinking of making him one of his team members, but now the situation has changed and he needs to be killed. Hades is about to pummel Alpha with a punch. Hades performs a powerful punch on the body of Alpha. The punch was quite strong and it left quite a toll on Alpha's body. All of a sudden, Hades realizes that there are still 2 specimens alive in this lab. Alpha remembers that Dr. Heinel told him about these last 2 specimens, and one of them is his family member. Hades says that it does not matter because he's going to kill everyone in here as his orders. Alpha gets up and Hades applauds his spirit for still keeping up. Hades tries to attack Alpha again, but he dodges it somehow. Alpha then gathers up his energy into one of his fists. Alpha performs a powerful punch which was blocked by Hades, but the punch was so powerful that it sent him a bit back. Before Hades can gather his thoughts, Alpha leaps toward him for the follow-up attack. Alpha attacks him for the second time, throwing him up against the wall. The condition of Alpha is becoming worse with every single attack he performs. Hades is still well and he tells Alpha that he cannot keep up with him with his temporary power alone. Hades uses his energy to power up his body muscles. Both of them leap toward each other. They throw their punches at each other, but Alpha dodges the punch of Hades. Alpha manages to land a powerful punch on the face of Hades. This time, Hades received some damage as well. Hades retaliates by punching Alpha, which he easily dodges by ducking down. Alpha then punches Hades on the side of his body. The veins of Alpha start bursting as he is using Limit Unlock for a long time, but Alpha still gathers up his strength in his punch. Alpha punches Hades, sending him crashing into the wall. The whole body of Alpha is on edge because of the side effects of Limit Cross. Hades comes out of the rubble, but his condition is also not that great, and he still cannot believe that he is struggling against a specimen. Alpha is not kidding around, so he gathers as much energy as possible. He then pours all of his energy in his fist. Alpha punches through the body of Hades, leaving a massive hole in it. Hades dies on the spot, and Alpha falls down due to exhaustion. Alpha still has some signs of life remaining in his eyes. He remembers Dr. Hanel telling him about his family member. Alpha tries to get up because he needs to save him before the gas reaches this place, but he falls down because his body cannot keep up. Alpha barely makes it up to the tube of specimens by slowly crawling toward it. After watching the specimen, he remembers some memories of him with his family member before the experiments. This specimen was his older brother. Alpha becomes happy, but his body cannot keep up any longer, so he collapses on the ground. The whole facility is in ruins, but thankfully, the gas didn't reach the room with specimens as it dissipated in the air. A helicopter arrives there, and it belongs to Dr. Hanel's comrades who came here to rescue him. They start searching for any survivors before the Army of Union arrives there. With this, our story ends, as this was a side story for a famous manhwa called Noblesse, and the big brother of Alpha appears in that manhwa. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments if you want more completed stories like these.